We have spent the last 3 weeks looking at stories of Jesus healing people, each time paying attention for the something more in each of those stories. The man who laid by the poolside for 38 years alone walked, but he also found the deep gift of community in his interaction with Jesus. And the man who'd been leprous came to Jesus. He was not only healed and made ritually clean, but exclusion was overcome, and he was brought back into the community. For the man, as we heard last week, who was afflicted by legion, he learned of the power of Jesus to overcome the afflicting power of empire's work. Not only what it does out there, but what it does when it is internalized too. And that man also found what is possible for those who carry on the ministry of Jesus after Jesus moves to the next place. Today, as we've heard, we have 2 more healing stories. To set the scene, though, this one follows on the tail of what we heard last week. You might recall, Jesus calmed the storm, got off the boat, was confronted by the man who was afflicted by legion. Jesus set the man free. The people begged him to leave anyway, and then he returned to the other side of the sea. Now, I want you to hear in this whole excursion started out so Jesus could get a bit of a rest, and there was no rest to be had at all in any of it. And things were not about to slow down at this point either. As Jesus made it back to the other side of the sea, a crowd gathered there to see him. But as things go, all the concerns of the crowd gave way to one important person's request. It was Jairus who came. Now, Jairus was a leader in the synagogue. He had influence. He was an authority in Jewish society. But in our story, powerful Jairus needed help. For his 12-year-old daughter was very ill and was nearing the point of death. So Jairus, as important as he was, brought his petition to Jesus, another important person, and he said, "Come and heal my daughter." And Jesus went with him. But as they made their way on this important venture to Jairus' house, with the crowd following in tow, among them was someone who did not have influence and didn't have power or money or even a name. And this person was also a woman. And she had a physical ailment that caused her to perpetually menstruate, leaving her ritually unclean. As it was with the leper a few weeks back, this meant anyone who came in contact with this woman would also be considered ritually unclean. Needless to say, the woman was an outcast. And attempting to be healed, she had spent all the money that she had, and she was still not any better than she had been. And her presence in that crowd was a threat to everyone else who pushed in to get close to Jesus. Nevertheless, this woman was there. And as the traveling crowd made their way towards Jairus' house, this woman exhibited faith and courage. And she moved in. And then she had the audacity to reach out and to touch Jesus' garment. Somehow she'd come to the sense that she had the faith that this was all that was needed for her to be made well from the thing that had ailed her for 12 long years. As the woman touched Jesus' garment, power went out from him, and exactly as she had anticipated, she was made well. And Jesus had also noticed that something had happened. So he stopped the crowd. He stopped his venture to Jairus' house, and he started to look for this woman. But that sort of thing takes time. And this was a disruption from the urgent matter of going to heal important Jairus' daughter. After all, an outcast woman of no recognition is surely not nearly as important as Jairus, the synagogue leader. But Jesus stopped anyway. And he looked for the woman and drew his attention to her. And as he was doing this holy work of drawing attention to this woman, news came from Jairus' house that his daughter had died. The moment of hope for Jairus had been so close, but now it was thwarted by death. Or at least that's how it might have seemed. But for Jesus, there's always enough time. So he stayed the course, making his way to Jairus' home so he could heal the young girl too, to bring her back to life. Now, these two stories are beautiful, each in their own right. They are worthy of our attention. As separated as Jairus and this unnamed woman were, as separated as they were by all societal standards, the goodness deepens as we start to recognize that these are two interwoven stories. But how is it that they relate to one another? Perhaps the way Jesus addresses each has something important to tell us today. If we go back to the crowd that's traveling on its way, when Jesus felt the power go out from him, the woman, quite naturally, understandably, retreated into the crowd. She didn't want to be seen. But Jesus called her out. Even when the disciples said, all kinds of people have touched you, don't waste your time, she was worth Jesus' time. Even as the woman presented herself, she was there in humility with fear and trembling. She knew that even being in that crowd was risky business. And there was the potential of great shame even in her healing. But Jesus focused in on her anyway, calling her daughter, affirming her faith, telling her you can go in peace, and assuring her that she indeed had been made well. This woman was brought from the shadows into the public eye. But things are quite different when we get to Jairus' house. There, as the professional mourners mourned and then laughed when Jesus said the girl was just sleeping, Jesus put them all out. He only allowed her parents and his 3 closest disciples to go in to the room where the girl was sleeping. They were even strictly ordered after Jesus said, "Talitha cum," young girl, arise, wake up. He ordered them that they had to keep this story quiet. The poor woman was brought into the public eye to be seen, to be celebrated, to be welcomed back into community. But the powerful man and his family were forced inward to consider this story in quiet. The excluded woman was brought out, but Jairus was told that he could not use this story in a way that might further his influence or his power in the world. It was something he would have to hold and ponder. And the only thing that could grow would not be his influence or power, but the tenderness of his heart. Both the rich and the poor needed to be healed in this story. But what each one needed was vastly different. And as it was, so is it still. In a world as broken as ours, rich and poor still need healing. And what each needs can still be dramatically, vastly different. The most vulnerable among us still need to be seen and welcomed into our collective life. They need the things that protect them from being taken advantage of. They need health care and systems that actually work. And as it was with Jairus, those who shape society and benefit from the way things are, they need to be healed too. But their healing looks different. It's to turn inward. It's to learn what Jairus found in that room where his daughter had laid lifeless. It's to remember the humanity of a gentle touch and the power of a kind word, and to embrace the way that brings life out of places of death. The most vulnerable need healed, and so do those with the most power. And for any of us to be well, we all need to be compelled by a vision that is expansive, that is shaped by the kind of healing that Jesus offered in our gospel lesson today. Thanks be to God for these two healed daughters. But this story is about something bigger than a young girl and a woman who'd been afflicted. This story is far more expansive than that. And there's a curious little detail that tips us off to it, and it may have even slipped our attention, but it would have been hard to miss in Jesus' time. It's a number. Anybody catch the number that appeared a couple of times? The number 12, yes. The length of time that this woman had suffered before being healed. And as a detail that only comes at the end of the story, oh, by the way, this young girl was 12 years old too, the one who'd been raised back to life. 12 was also a shorthand way of naming Israel, the 12 tribes that came from Joseph's sons. If I might put this bigger picture that's before us into a succinct form, I couldn't do better than relying on theologian Ched Myers. He writes that this story, the one of the two daughters being healed, was a sign that Israel, just like those two, Israel also was ill, and that their faith was missing the point. If Israel wanted to be saved, it would have to embrace God's kingdom. It would have to seek a new social order where there was an equal status for all people. This alone, Myers goes on to say, would liberate the lowly outcast and snatch the powerful from the grip of death. This story of two healings was a sign of the reordering of our collective life. It's what Jesus told us he came to do, that the last would be first, and that the first would be last. Indeed, ours is a world where our bodies, our economies, our governments, our societies, our churches need to be realigned and reconfigured around the good news. And that's no small order. But it has to, and it can start somewhere. In a couple of our stories from the last few weeks, healing was the result of confident and bold faith. It was the case for Jairus' daughter as her father came to make this request of Jesus. It was the case of the woman who touched Jesus' garment. It was the case of a leper who came to Jesus. You may recall that leper. He approached Jesus and said to him, and get the boldness of this, "If you are willing, Jesus, you can make me well." I hope we can have bold faith like that. And also, may we hear what Jesus said to that man. "I am willing. Be made well." May it be so. Amen.